Hello, Cheryl. You've uh, you've established the Cheryl D. Miller Collection at Stanford University. From what I've read, the creation of this collection resulted from a print magazine article you wrote back in 1987, titled "Black Designers Missing in Action." Can you give us some more background on that?
Oh, sure. And it's a big story that um, keeps me going, keeps the topic alive. And first off, thank you for the opportunity to share. And I sure hope that there's something that I can say of what I've done in my career that will help everybody who's listening and is looking for some, direction and answers, that it'll help shed some light on the path for the
I'm
future.
sure there will be. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, how this whole scenario started is I moved to New York City in 1982 with my husband, who is a corporate exec, and we had a corporate relocation move from Washington, D.C. into New York City. And I got my marching orders from him then. Cheryl, I got to go to work, go find an apartment in the city, and go find what you're going to do. But by the time that had happened in our lives, I had finished this incredible journey of going to design school, birthing out of the Mid-Atlantic. No, well, undergraduate, I started Rhode Island School of Design, and then I had an unfortunate turn or swing of events. My father passed away 2 weeks before I was to return to RISD for my sophomore year. And Micah, I wanted to go back home to be with my mom and my younger brother, to take care of the family. He was 44 years old and I was 19. He died of pancreatic cancer. I came home freshman year for Thanksgiving, and they told me, Papa would be dead in 10 months.
Oh my God. That's
I know. And he died 2 weeks before my sophomore year to return to Providence. And I said, I can't do that. So dean to dean, admissions to admissions, Micah received me. And that was the closest I could get to Washington. I wasn't going to give up studying art, but I had to get back to DC area. So I completed Micah. And when I completed Micah, I went into DC and started and completed I was really blessed, a full broadcast design career. I worked for the local affiliates. The networks had great opportunities. That's a discussion in and of itself. And then 10 years of marriage and 10 years of professional broadcast design association work, art direction work. We moved to New York City. And like I said, hubby said, I got to go to work. You please go find us an apartment and go find out what you're going to do. So in that, a long story of learning the New York design scene, the studios, portfolio reviews, any and everything a kid getting off a Greyhound bus in New York City and wanting to be a graphic designer. If it was to do, I did it. And one of the things that I did come up with was, I don't know, as I am a corporate wife, I didn't know how long I would be in New York. I said, let me go to school. So I went over to Pratt, having 10 years of experience and a BFA, completed BFA from Micah and foundation studies at RISD. I had this already, 15-year journey of trying to go down the professional graphic design lane. And I asked Pratt if they would review my work and my status, and I wanted to go into their communications design program. And could they evaluate any of that experience? They looked at my presentation, my work, my resume, and how I had performed, and they gave me half of the degree and told me that I needed to take classes and pay tuition for the other half. And I did that in a year and a half. I completed their communications design program. And then I got a challenge from the chairperson, Tom Manassi. At the time, he's passed away now. But he gave me a challenge. He said, Miss Miller, this is wonderful, honey, but you're not going to graduate from Pratt. We're not going to give you your degree and you do a design thesis. And I said, excuse me? They said, you don't get the opportunity to do a design thesis. And I'm like, okay, why?
So wait,
Because why? That would be,
why? Yeah.
That would be too easy.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
That would be too easy. So I said, really? She said, the committee, the chair, the department, we're going to put a challenge. We want you to make a contribution to the industry. And we're not going to allow you to do a design project because that's, not that I was a great designer, but it would have been easy.
Mm-hmm.
So they challenged me.
Okay.
And I said, okay. So I cross-referenced. I knew when they put that challenge to me, I knew what I was going to do. I had come up from the Mid-Atlantic. I'd come up from, at the time, it was suppressed for designers, government work association kind of work. Place at that time to be for art academics, had more of a fine art spin, a lot of things going on with the museums and things, but to be a communications designer, graphic designer, it was limited at best. And I saw a lot of people suffering. And I saw a lot of people, young adults of color, mostly African Americans, disenfranchised by our geography and the lack of academic opportunities specific to graphic design, and then at that time a place to work. You know, there's only association work, government work, small design firms.
Well, plus,
So,
I would argue it's hard to become a designer anyway. But
yes,
to your point, that just kind of compounded things.
Right. So I assessed this situation, and I wanted to write a thesis that analyzed the problem and offer solutions. And so with that, I went and got cross readers, disciplines in a variety of areas, psychologists, labor specialists. My primary reader was the acclaimed Dr. Leslie King Hammond, who at the time was a dean of graduate affairs school student. She was a dean. I don't know exactly her title then. She was a dean at MICA, and she was my primary reader. And we put together a piece of scholarship. That's where this started. The Pratt thesis is the scholarship to all of this discussion. And it's transcending the problems of the Black graphic designer to success in the marketplace. And that satisfied my Pratt requirements, and it's a piece of scholarship. So it's footnoted, interviews, I mean, anything at the time that I could collect to produce this document. I believed in the document so much that I took it over to print magazine. And at the time I had a studio. I walked over to print. I'll never forget it. I put the thesis in a brown envelope with a sticky. I didn't, just to the publisher. I didn't even know who the publisher was. Took it to the front desk, and the sticky said, "I'd like to turn this into a magazine article, feature magazine article." Before I could get back to my office, they offered me a check, gave me an editor,
Wow.
Mr. Tom Goss. Martin Fox was the publisher at the time. And I want to read this off of the AIGA website. So the thesis turned into a major article. On the front of one of the design diversity inclusion pages on AIGA, I want to quote, they are reflecting on the first diversity conference. It's the response to the first AIG discussion forum and conference, AIGA Volume 1, Number 9, dated 1991. It reads, quoting the AIGA website and the newsletter, Cheryl D. Miller, president of Cheryl D. Miller Design, had no idea that her 1987 print magazine article, Black Designers Missing in Action, would catapult her to national prominence and to be a catalyst for efforts to raise consciousness. In fact, she still receives calls and letters referencing that first documented account of the dilemma of Black designers. Why is graphic design 93% white? Removing barriers to increase opportunities in graphic design was the first AIGA conference. And on the newsletter, they cite that this article is what is still happening in my life. It was written in 1991. In fact, she still receives calls and letters referencing that first documented account of the dilemma of Black designers.
Well,
40 years have passed, and it's
2019. We're talking about it today,
well,
right?
this is how the collection started.
Yeah.
In fact, I still receive calls and letters. And so it started a year ago. The scholarship, which I had no idea, has been used, the Pratt reference in the article has been used cross-discipline in a lot of diversity, equality, and inclusion discussions across a lot of industries. So what I did in academic scholarship transcended graphic design into other areas. So there's a John P. Scholars program at Stanford. One of the young scholars, Michael Grant, found the reference for the Pratt thesis and asked the special collections librarian at Stanford to find the document. And so in finding the document, Pratt gave Stanford a one-time usage for this particular scholar to read it. When he got it, he was in a scholars group in this professional program. He wanted 20 copies, and he went back to the librarian, and then going back to the librarian, she said, I have to find the author. Pratt only gave us a one-time usage.
Wow.
I have to find the author. And when she found me to get my permission to reproduce it 20 times, she found my collection. And the collection is beyond, it's an unbelievable collection. And she asked for it.
She asked for it, she got it, huh?
Yeah, we did all the paperwork, attorneys and everything. And the collection is fascinating because it's just not the article. They took 50 years. I say 50 years, 50 boxes. And my quote is, it's left my hands, but not my life. It's everything. From 3 years old sketches, my first appearance in Washington, D.C., the Washington Post and Star as a Girl Scout, winning my first art award, my first, all of my acknowledgments as a kid, being winning awards, my first high school portfolio, going to getting accepted to Rhode Island. I would say that I was the first kid out of DC after the civil rights movement to be recruited to Rhode Island School of Design. So all of this was here, inclusive of, I wrote my memoir. They wanted the research for my story. It doesn't include my manuscripts for my memoir because we're still working with that, but all the research that went into the book, all of the records for my, all of these articles, I started writing in New York. So I had cassette recordings of people that I interviewed, all my notes, all my journals, all of my writings, subsequent articles, all my awards, all my business letters, everything.
Everything since when you were 3. If people start pulling artwork I had laying around since I was that age, there's a lot of stuff I'd be embarrassed about. What is there? I mean, just bad art I did, growing up. Was it, or did you always have a kind of a flair, or did you, anything you didn't like, did you get rid of, or is it kind of here I am world,
Well, people want to know, they're curious about this collection. How did Stanford get a collection? I said, well, it starts with I collected.
Yeah.
I saved everything. I saved everything.
That's
and
wild.
Yeah, it is. And because I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I've even raised my kids like that. When you have an appointment with destiny, you know it. And we can look at some greats, like we look at, one of my favorite is one of my favorite childhood kind of legacy stories is Serena Williams. I mean, I enjoy watching her dad's footage. And one of the sports reporters, when she was 11 with Venus, she's 11, Venus is 13, and they're on the courts with dad. And the reporter says, so Serena, who do you want to grow up to be like? And she looks right in the camera and she says, everybody's going to want to be like me.
Uh-huh.
So when you are gifted to destiny, you know. And so I don't know the when, the how, and the why, but I just know I had a vision from when I was a kid. And I also knew that I was on the path of first rights, like Coca-Cola is a first right branding. And then came RC Cola and Pepsi Cola and every other kind of name it, you cola. Right. Same thing if you walk up to the FedEx copy center, can I have a Xerox? Right. And the Canon is in the, so I knew I was one of the first rights in branding as a kid. And so I just saved everything. Wow. I knew that in my business model, there was no one in New York doing exactly what I was doing. There were others, and at the time, but I would say I was the only woman of color doing high-end corporate communications. There were a few others, and they had other lanes, promotions, advertising, but I was the only one doing C-suite publications, and there was a reason. So, I jumped on the path of, no one wrote about this. And I think the reason that it caught the attention is the academics and the scholarship. Okay, I'm big on academic and scholarship. Just don't tell me you got a problem and you feel bad today. Let's talk about why, and if you're gonna prove it, and especially when you're coming from a place of, my talk, we're doing this from, our conference, my talk is designing in the dark. When you're designing in the dark, you have to be the light. And so a part of that respect that comes for people listening to you, it's just not waking up in the morning and having a hissy fit. Oh, this is not working. And my friends, this is not working. Tell me why. And, and so that's what it is. The scholarship, it's not the article, it's the scholarship that has transcended the time. And they keep calling me for it. And so even this article that turned into the magazine, print magazine, came again in 2016. Can we have a quote? I said, how about you let me write an article and tell you what I think now, 30 years later. You're still calling me. The phone rings, the emails still come, nothing's changed. You can find me, and I will tell you pretty much the same thing until the problem is solved. And so I think I'm just the first one who put some skin in the game. And I was young, and I was on the New York scene, and I left. I did what Pratt wanted me to do: make a contribution to my industry. So I have a motto, two of them. One about the collection is it's left my hands, but not my life. And I have a motto about, I think that will answer your question number 4. Living your life is your story. Living your life for others is your legacy. Leave a legacy. And I needed to get out of school. I knew there was a problem. I analyzed it. I made enough stuff for people to footnote and to carry me, to carry the document into 21st century discussion. And here we are. And that's what the collection is. It's all of the notes, the journals, the model for business. I had a secretary, my assistant at the studio, and I did make her. She looked at me, she said, Ms. Miller, this is crazy. Why are we doing this? And I said, her name was Crystal. I said, Crystal, just do it. She said, just do it for me. She said, well, why are we doing this? I said, just do it. And what did I ask her to do? Copy every letter I ever wrote.
Wow.
Put it.
So you were on a mission from day one. You knew it. Day one.
And so I said, back then we had floppy disk. I said, make a copy of a computer document, file. And I said, hard copy. I don't trust this technology. Make a hard copy of every letter I write and put it 3-hole punch it and put it in a notebook. Okay. And it would take years. She said, Mrs. Miller, why are we doing? I said, sweetie, in essence, if you want to keep this job, you keep copying floppy disk and keep making 3-ring binder notebooks of everything I write. So
I can only imagine people think you're like a hoarder or you know,
yeah, I was documenting.
like what's she doing in there?
Yeah, I'm documenting what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when Stanford found me, they found, and the pictures. I have a friend who's a beautiful life event magazine type like photographer. She zoomed over here, and the pictures, they're on my website and stuff. Of them. Bless her heart, she came to where I live, checked in the hotel, rented a car. I live out in the woods, 4 days, 12 hours a day, and at the end, a tractor trailer. And a clipboard, my signing and releasing the whole thing. And next thing I knew, 50 boxes are in special collections at the library in Stanford. I just got a note from her about 10 days ago that professional archivists are halfway into recording and everything and making an online guide to it. Each folder is a lecture and a course all by itself, really. And yeah, it's a discussion. Each piece is a discussion, between portfolio reviews, how I was feeling, all of my journals, the people that saw. Listen, there is, and I'm trying to get a little platform for it. I have an unpublished recording of Paul Rand. I went to see Paul Rand in 1994, 4 years before he passed away. And I was in the city. I drove up to now the area where I live outside of Yale. And I recorded. Wow. And I'm looking for a platform now to publish my reflection, to publish the fact that the recording is in the collection. I was so naive. I knew, oh my God, I can't even begin to tell you. I knew what I was going into to interview this man. And it's amazing what he told me, and it's amazing what he saw as the future of design. So now if you want to know that, somebody's got to give me an article. I'm knocking on doors.
All right.
Okay, I'm knocking on doors. I'd like to be the first one to tell you what Paul Rand told me.
I will do podcast number 2.
Yeah, sure. But so it's that kind of detail, journaling, logging, notes. And then they were very curious in my memoir and my family story. And I said, why do you want that stuff? And they said, well, when people get involved with your research, they want to know about you. And so they took everything, man. They took everything. The only thing that they didn't take were framed pictures on the wall that I painted for my living room. Wow. It's all gone. And so we're, at the end of this, I'll tell you what I'm doing now, and I'm starting all over again. And
well, listen, it sounds like they did the FBI Michael Cohen treatment to you there.
Yeah. And she said it was one of the best. The special collections librarian says this is one of the best archives that we ever picked up. She says, you're a great archivist. And the only thing that I hadn't done, because I documented everything, I had a ledger, everything was in cardboard boxes and folders. She says, the only thing you didn't do, and that's what we did for the time that she was here packing up, we transferred everything to acid-proof boxes and archival folders. So if I had known to do that at the beginning, all she would have had to do was just come and pick it up. Yeah. But it gave me a wonderful opportunity to go through every file of my life.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And all we did was take it out of cardboard and put it into archival acid, containers. And she took it out.
Wow.
And the pictures of it are just, it's, like I said, each folder.
Can we see this online? Is this documented? Is there
there's, you can go to, you can see some of it, yes. I think it's designdiversitygroup.com is my scholarship website, designdiversitygroup.com.
Okay.
And you'll see some of those pictures, you'll see links.
I'll post the link when we post this interview. I'll post the link.
Okay. Now the repository has the electronic version of the thesis. You can download the thesis and the pictures of her coming up there. There's some sound bites. The video press release that they did really captures an incredible story. I'm so honored that they wanted it. And her charge was to diversify the collection. And I have another motto, opportunity meets the prepared. Yeah. Success is when opportunity meets the prepared. Right. And everything was in a box ready for her. Right. I just didn't know when, how, but somebody came looking. So back all the way to your first question, somebody came looking for the thesis. Yeah. And this time they found 50 years, 50 boxes, and it's now the Cheryl D. Miller collection at Stanford University. And why I say each folder is a conversation, a lecture, a course, because I documented everything. And there are things that, how I did my business, how I prepared for art school. I documented, my first major corporate client was Time Inc. And back then, this is right, I'm at the cusp of the Mac entering into the marketplace. And so I documented a very powerful corporate sponsored book for the United Negro College Fund that is absolutely beautiful, that Time Inc. Was the corporate sponsor for. Time Inc. paid me to do this as an in-kind service. Again, my business model, I don't want to fill, you have other questions, but the business model is a podcast all by itself. How did I have a design firm in New York City? And I did, and it stopped when I stopped, okay? Right. The only way that I had to stop it, you'll come back and ask me, about women in design question, right. But I stopped it, or it'd still be going along, without other things in my life. So it's more the collection. Oh, I was saying as an example, I documented how I produced this one publication, which was gorgeous. I was an advocate for the Swiss grid system. And so all of my original paginations, the grid, old school, typography and galleys. And I had a few premier corporate photographers. They never sent me contact sheets. They sent me full boxes of prints, contact prints. So all of their work, John Pender Hughes and, I can't think of the other gentleman, Ed Eckstein, were my primary corporate photographers. And all of their works, boxes of beautiful black and white and color photographs for all the publications, corporate publications I designed during that era, is in the collection. Their gallery within my collection is a collection within itself. So it's, like I said, the collection itself is a course. Yeah. It's a 4-year program. It's a documentary all by itself. So, and the people that I feature, I had a lot of collaborators, okay? And a few handpicked illustrators, a few writers. We were producing high-end corporate communications. But I had this very unique business model. And, I don't want, you have other questions, but you can come back and ask me, how did Cheryl Miller, what was that? And I wrote an interesting wave. I had a very, very interesting model. And I think that model, the template for how to create a design business, I think that template is really, really, again, I could do a book on, teach a class on the business of design. I found a niche that is still, if I were a younger woman, I'd say I'd have one of the most popular design firms. Yeah. Because what I was doing is relevant now, and how I was doing it, that right. I really, the template. And so Crystal, my assistant, after a while she gave up. God bless her, she just copied everything, and everything's on a floppy disk. And Stanford has everything to preserve the archives. So they said, just get, so they've been able to take old technology and, make, bring it forward, MP3s and 4s and videos and things. So they are able to care for this. So it was easy to work it all out with them. And it's been really an honor. And I'm still alive.
Let me get to some of these other questions. I wanted to jump in. And I think it sounds like there's no shortage of content when we're talking to Cheryl Miller. So
No.
I want to post some of these links when we put this interview out. I'll post some of these links so people viewing can reference this themselves and see some of the work. But as someone, I've been in the visual arts career for my whole life, like yourself, since I was a kid. I used to draw and paint as a kid, and I think a lot about perception. Right, when I'm doing design, how people will actually look at my work and then from just looking, they'll make judgments.
That's right.
So one might argue that the work you've done has helped to change people's perceptions about minorities in a design career. Is there a correlation between how we perceive art and design and how we perceive one another as human beings? Would you?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sure. It seems like you would be the person to ask about this.
Well, I think that my answer people might not like.
Okay.
And I know I'll get trolled on Facebook or LinkedIn because it's pretty old school. And I want you to rewind with me. I don't know your age, but I'm mid-century. I'm with my mid-century furniture that's still trending in New York.
Okay. I'm 49.
So, okay, well, I'm older. I'm much older. But rewind yourself back to the day either you remember or you've read about the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. Just rewind and imagine standing in front of the Washington Monument the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So just take that visual and put it there.
Okay.
I asked you to locate that because I was 16, 17 years old. I was getting ready. My dad was getting ready to take me on a college tour. I was applying to college.
Okay.
Now, I want you to look at me real good. I do not appear as a Black woman out of any diaspora. Now, take me as 16 years old, trying to go to college the day that Martin Luther King is assassinated. What does that look like?
First word comes to mind is just fear.
No, I know, but what does that child look like?
What does that child look like?
Because you're asking me about presentation in the right. What does that child look like in a big wide world, leaving out of an urban city into New England, saying that I'm a Black woman? Look at me real good. Now imagine me 16 years old with this story.
Right. This just happens, and you're
okay. Now, so my point is, I want you to be empathetic.
Yeah.
And look at me real good now. Imagine me a teenager in Washington, D.C., the day that Martin Luther King is assassinated, and I'm starting a college tour. Can you remember the visuals? That's kind of like a Trayvon Martin day, Okay. Okay, fire and community, and look at me real good.
Right. I mean, I was not alive at that time, so just.
But you got to go back to the Google footages. But
yeah, well, and
so let's go back to Trayvon Martin Day. Okay,
right.
This is what I'm living through.
Yeah.
Okay, now so just stay with me with that. I'm the one with the responsibility in the whole wide world to make an anomaly.
Yeah.
I have to transcend my anomaly to make people comfortable. I have to understand the big wide world. That if I leave a place that understands that I'm of mixed heritage and ethnicity, but I'm labeled an African-American Black woman. But look at me.
Right, right.
I'm the one that has to transcend
Yeah.
and
You have
speak
to work
to
all
a
that out,
white.
right?
Yeah, I'm the one
That's right.
that owns the anomaly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to make people, I have to find a way to bridge and make people feel comfortable immediately to move past, what are you kind of thing. You're Black, I don't understand. I don't understand. Look, Kamala Harris, like, that's Black, I don't quite understand.
Right.
So, but take all of that back as a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to own it.
Yeah.
And I have to break in with this destiny vision. I'm called to do this, whether folks like it or understand it or not. I'm the one. So you ask me, I have owned it. This is the old school, don't troll me. I have had to make people comfortable quickly and turn the expression that I always get in a face when I first meet people. I'm like, okay, relax. Believe me, I'm just like you. When you cut, the only color is blood.
Right.
And in business, the only color is green. We're going to get this together. We're going to understand this. But I owned.
Yeah.
I've got to make people comfortable. If I want to do business in New York City, I've got to own the anomaly and level the playing ground. So what I did was, first off, I had to make the work over the top.
Yeah.
Okay, I had to make
the work had to speak for itself, right?
It had to transcend, to give you no reason to keep me out. Okay, and so I did a little research. Okay, how am I going to do that? Because people don't understand. I'm not even going to talk that I'm mixed race. I'm not even going to talk. Oh, now I have to listen. It was just 2000, what, 1 or 2? I could check on my census a couple of boxes. I didn't have those boxes. It was not a Starbucks latte menu. It was chock full of nuts. It was black and white coffee, cream, and only 2 packets of sugar, 1 white and 1 pink. Sacred. That was it. There was no choice for anything else.
Right.
Okay, now I can live authentically to my authentic self. You know,
Yeah.
I'm multiracial. Look at me.
Right.
And I have a couple of ethnicities. Okay. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I've lived in a couple of parts of the world. My family is all over the place. Okay. And I have a motto now. If you can't sell to my current 21st century family, my brother, my family, my in-laws, if you line us all up, if you cannot sell to us, you will be out of business. But we lived like this back in the day. Imagine me, the day Martin Luther King was assassinated. It was my issue to break this barrier. And the first thing I did was I had to make the work undeniable, because it is, I will say this, it is a meritocracy.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder. It's hard enough, but if you can win awards against the dominant culture rules and unspoken rules of the game, if you can win awards fair and square.
Yeah. You just flat out compete.
Yeah. And I took every penny I could to compete. Okay. And I learned and respected some of the aesthetic of design. And I mastered Bauhaus. That's it, square up. I mastered it. Okay. And that has a lot to do with my early exposures in Washington, D.C. I was birthed out of, who knew? As a teenager, I was birthed out of the Colorfield School of painting. Okay, the Washington cadre that was cut off from New York in contemporary art. My first award, I knocked off of Picasso. I was born a designer. Okay, and so I mastered Bauhaus and the Swiss grid. So the respect for the work it was structured.
Yeah.
For the European eye. So the images and the icons that I threw on top didn't disturb.
Right. So there was a framework in the background, and then you're kind of pushing the envelope.
I pushed the envelope.
The imagery.
Yes. Yeah. I was at Basquiat and Warhol together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I put it on the aesthetic. And so that, and then I dressed. I didn't go anywhere looking like an artist. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I said, I gotta make people comfortable with this anomaly. Okay, because I just knew being in this framework, in this DNA, and the branding that I had because of the times, I needed people to pull the questions off of the table of discussion quickly. Get off of who am I and what do I look like, and let's move past that, and let's talk about business. Let's talk about work. Let's talk about the design, which was undeniable. And so I owned, let me make myself comfortable to the majority.
Mm-hmm.
And so where you'll troll me on Facebook now, it worked. I did not look like an artist. Okay, I walked out in a business suit, crazy images and illustrations and things. It was laid on top. It was laid on top of Bauhaus structure. Less is more, and some Swiss grid.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the majority comfortable. And then because it had a structure, it competed, and it won awards. So you take the performance of the firm, and then I was a part of some strategy for business and women. I kind of clicked two boxes in New York at the same time. New York State had a platform for minority and women business affairs. There's great initiatives. So again, the business structure of the firm is a discussion all in and of itself. But I clicked two boxes and I was all over New York. And then, I just didn't present like my peers, that's it. So I had my own anomaly that didn't make a whole lot of sense visually. So the minute I walk in,
did you find that was I feel like back in those days versus today, there's been some change, some cultural change, maybe you disagree, but did you find that was really, I can't imagine, that was really a pressing issue, that would you run into comments or strange looks or, oh, don't even bother coming in, like this kind of flagrant prejudice or anything like that? Or was it more covert?
No, it was covert in I wasn't included. So there was no reason why I couldn't have gotten a job in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody let me in. Everybody let me, my initial stages in New York before I decided to go to Pratt. I was on the portfolio review circuit, and everybody kept advancing me. I met everybody.
Yeah.
And you don't get a referral to the next studio if you didn't have some success in introduction. No one would say, oh, I would get referrals. So, one studio owner would take me to the next, And I kept going around and around and around, but nobody was hiring me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was excluded. And I wasn't included because it still is a game of who do you feel comfortable working with? And so the portfolio and what I was doing, and as the years advanced, the portfolio was the portfolio. It got me into meeting and talking to a lot of people, but nobody committing to me. Mm. And then I hit an opportunity. And again, that's a whole keynote in a lecture, how I started the business. But it unfolded that I was given a piece of business from Time Inc. And next thing you know, I had a studio. And then I had any C-suite that was on 6th Avenue was looking for Cheryl Miller, and Cheryl Miller was looking for C-suite. I had a target, senior vice president of corporate communications. If I left my studio to sell, that's who I was selling to. Now, everything else came through the door, but if I was going to, pick up, and go out and sell whether it was snowing, great day, and New York is a mess when it's snowing and raining.
Yeah.
If I was going to get out and truck through that, my target was SVP corporate communications. And once Time Inc. opened, they all opened. And so, and again, I had this unique, very, very unique model of getting business. And it just kept multiplying, kept going, kept multiplying, kept going. And it was my assignment to make everybody comfortable with me.
Okay.
So the answer to your question is, I'm sure, if I had rods and rings and color different hair and this, that, and the other all over the place, and I could scare half of my clients. I mean, troll me, go ahead, troll me. But
I don't think anyone's going to troll you, Kathy.
Okay, so I think what I'm saying is, I dressed the part, I acted the part, and when I opened up, I presented as a businesswoman who happened to have aspirations for art, and it worked. So the answer to your question is, I learned how to be a businesswoman.
So, end of the day, and I want to get to some other stuff in a bit, but clearly things, there's plenty of problems out there, right? There's plenty of problems for minorities out there. But I would say what I'm hearing from you is, don't let any of that get in your way. If you have your vision, you can make it work. Yes,
and you have to know the signs of the times. There's some things going on right now, I swear.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do a studio again, okay, it would be as competitive contextually today as it was back when I was practicing. Okay, because I know the niche, I know the hole, I know where to fill. And when I come out to Chicago, they're giving me 30 minutes. I want to stand up before the community that will be so honored to listen to me for a minute. And I want to tell everybody where the fish is.
Where the fish is?
Yeah, where the fish is. Where's the pool? We're out here trolling. Where is it?
Okay.
I want to get up and tell you, here it is, like they do on The Voice, like Blake does. He does that. Do you watch The Voice? He does this.
Yeah, I watch it.
Yeah, right. I want to do like this. And I want everybody to go. And I want everybody to prosper. And I want everybody to finish what God called me to start. Okay.
Beautiful.
And I want everybody to finish it now. And here, like they and I'm current now. So what's my hashtag? Party over here. Back in the day, it was party over here. Flash, was it flash mob? Like they do in the malls. They did flash mob. Right. Okay. Works over here. And let me tell you your quantitative difference, and walk in boldly and go live your life, be a designer and prosper. Okay. I can tell you where that is. I can tell you right now, but then you might not want to come and hear me in Chicago. So in my 30 minutes, I don't want to necessarily bore with all of this. You can hear the podcast. I'll answer questions, but I want to tell everybody back in the day, it was party over here, hashtag. I've got a hashtag. I've got a hashtag on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah, I got 2 of them. And like I said, if I tell you now, then you won't come see us. All of us, we all have so much to say. And I just got war stories in my 30 minutes, but I got a hashtag, and I want to tell everybody where the work is, and everybody needs to run from the conference and go get it.
So, so I think, and we can put your hashtags up online as well. So, and yeah, let us know. One important component to this year's Fuse is that we're working directly with Vernon Lockhart and Project Osmosis. And Project Osmosis is the mission is to create programs and initiate initiatives that identify and develop young people from minority groups in Chicago. You know, as a woman, a minority yourself, do you have any suggestions for these young people who we will be working with?
I think that.
I mean, we've kind of already answered this question, right?
No. I think what I wrote the answer. Let's see. What question number is that on your?
Question 4.
Question 4. It goes back to my motto: success is when opportunity meets the prepared.
So be prepared.
Be prepared, but more importantly, until things change at the other end of this football field, and you're making 4 downs, the industry and the community is making 4 downs and on the field and making some headway down the field together and scoring. It might be another 30 years, 30, 40 years before it's different. So preparing the youth now for something that may or may not appear because of the problems, sometimes I think that's dangerous. Because the industry hasn't changed, so we prepare all these people and where they're going. It's gotten broader. Design has gotten broader. The initiatives, but
a lot of disruption today in design. It's a lot of confusion about.
A lot of confusion.
Yeah, because for example, like a lot of the CPGs, a lot of the agencies have been disrupted because they used to, you know, these big brands, they would do design for these big brands. It would be beautiful. And boom, you know, the Procter and Gamble's making its money and it's paying out all these agencies and they're making their money and everybody's happy because the agencies, all they need to worry about is like, let's make a beautiful package for you. But now with digital, the past 2 decades has really disrupted all of that. And you have this new generation that's saying, you know, I don't really care if I have Coca-Cola, you know, I like RC Cola part 2 or whatever. I mean, it's and I can go online and I can get that specific product I'm looking for. Amazon is really disrupting a lot of the old ways of approaching things. So the idea of branding and just kind of pitching yourself and having that boardroom sitting there judging you, that's all kind of becoming topsy-turvy these days. So I think to your point, I think, you know, a career in design is difficult, and, you know, not to discourage anyone, like you said, I think if you have your vision and if you are prepared, you could change the world for sure. But maybe you need to, you know, as you were asking me to empathize with you, you have to empathize with someone who's maybe doesn't have the perspective you do, and you might not like their perspective. It might be an incorrect perspective. But I imagine you need to have an empathy for that person in order to succeed.
But can you still hear me?
I can. We're breaking up a little bit. I got you. We're here.
Okay. All right. If you listen to me, listen all out here, I think that I'm going to answer that. And that has a lot to do with understanding where we are in this disruptive everything. I mean, you know, you don't need a New York medallion anymore. You got Uber.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to the movies now.
Exactly.
You got Netflix. Everything is a disruptor.
Yeah.
Okay. And the answer to your question is, I think that it's not even the young kids are diverse, period. They are diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they are disruptors.
Yeah.
They're born into this. Okay, they weren't born into your season or my season. They've come to disrupt.
Right.
And to bring change.
They don't know anything else. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's us that has to change. Okay.
Sure.
We have to get with it. All right. You think about empathy and listening. I mean, there's a lot going on that even the birth certificate is disrupted.
Yeah. Right.
So when we talk about primary documents and we call, I'm also a theologian, we call that doing systematic theology. And systematic theology is when primary documents don't work anymore. And then you got to do a theology to make things current. The answer to your question is that the kids have to see what many of us refuse to see. If they want to be prepared to be designers of tomorrow, they have to clearly understand what we can't even get. And you ask, okay, all right. Yeah. So they can't listen to us and design in our darkness. They are the light.
Right.
So again, my hashtag, and I'll tip it off. They are the solution to Prada and Gucci already. And if they don't understand that they can walk into Gucci and say, you don't have to make another corporate apology because I'm here to help you. You got to be able to walk in there and do that and get your job and do what you got to do.
Right.
They're the ones that have to change.
Yeah.
They're the ones, Gouda and Prada have to change. And they don't like it. And your shirt, look at your shirt, your Burberry. They pulled off a hoodie. They put it up and Twitter took it down. Did you see that hoodie with the noose on it?
Oh yeah.
Who does that?
Right.
And so my hashtag, okay, I got one hashtag, fire the art directors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. You really just called me out there. I didn't even make that association. I saw the article. This was a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is the kids have to be prepared and bold enough to know that in this present darkness, they are the light. In my present darkness, then I was the light. You got to be the light whether there's darkness all around you. So you asked me about these kids. They have to know they're the solution. So one of them most prepared with the best portfolio in spite of the obstacles, the hindrances, and the darkness. Someone of them has got to have the savvy to go knock on Gucci's door and say, you don't have to do that anymore. Hire me.
What was the noose? What was the reasoning behind that? They
had a hoodie.
No, I saw that. I was like,
listen, don't ask me what a noose means. They had a full noose.
No,
look at the pictures. So my presentation.
I'm just saying this was Burberry who did this, right? I didn't read the article.
Burberry, you can Google Burberry apologies debuting hoodies with noose around neck.
What was the reasoning? What was the rationale behind that?
Which rationale? To make it or to take it down?
Yeah, to make it. What did they have to say for
ignorance? I don't know. My job is solution. Right. Like Burberry, come on.
Yeah.
And I hate to be, don't make me be radical. Please don't put, don't troll me. I got one. When this stuff comes out, I got one. It's called Why Peoples.
What?
Why Peoples?
Why Peoples?
Yeah. Meaning like, white people, why?
Why people?
Yeah. So it's Why Peoples. WHYPEEPSO. I picked that up from one of you guys online. I said, oh, that's perfect. Why Peoples?
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't know. It's like it's not rocket science. I mean, who thought that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I definitely now that you've literally on camera called me out for wearing the shirt, I'm gonna have to address this.
But that's but these corporate apologies are rampant. And
Yeah.
so a
It's
kid
so confused as well. Like everything's so confused, right? I mean, this is kind of goes back to my question about perception and design. And you know, it's funny. It could just be a loop of rope. Some dumb person thought, oh, that's cool looking or whatever, and boom, it's so loaded. It's like a swastika, you know. I mean, it's so loaded.
It's loaded. Why would you do?
So loaded.
Why?
Yeah.
Why people? Why people? Why?
Yeah.
I don't know, my love.
Just
But you know what it's like? Let me tell you. Not that I endorse anyone. I love Disney Orlando Park.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because there's room for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Disney in Orlando, Florida, there's a parking lot. There's room for your car. There is the trolleys, the trams that come that take you. There's so many of them that you don't wait. See, people get anxious when there doesn't seem to be a seat for you. There doesn't seem to be an opportunity for you, or there's not room enough for you. You go to Disney, you move fast because there's room enough. Nobody waits. The trolley comes, you jump on. The trolley is as big as it is from New York to California. If you can't get on that trolley, you just couldn't get on.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And the rides, the wait.
Yeah.
And then if you know do you know the secret to Disney and getting through? You know, for those of you with kids.
The wristband?
Listen.
You gotta go ahead of time. You organize it all ahead of time. No?
No. I discovered this with my kids. There's a secret to even getting through Disney even faster. It's in the parking lot when you come in. One of my kids, when we first trip, they were in the back, and one of them hung their head out and said, "Thank you very much." All we did was roll down the window and say, "Where's A parking lot, blue parking lot, F section, whatever." And my kid said, "Thank you very much." And next thing I know, the guy handed out passes. I'm like, oh my God, all we had to do was be user-friendly? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
All you had to do is go. That's the secret. Just go in there and be nice. And you never know who's Minnie and Mickey walking through, handing out passes.
Well,
okay,
have a magical day. That's it.
I know. Please and thank you went a long way, man. It went a long way.
Right. Yeah.
Being gracious went a long way. I got a whole day of pass moving to the front of the line. There was room for everybody. No one was anxious.
Yeah.
You know, every ride. And if you were kind enough to be kind enough, you got a pass to get in the front. You know, it's like, you ask me, everybody needs to be branded like the park, like the theme park. Now, I don't know anything else about Disney other than I would walk around. I've been a couple times and I'm like, you know what? Everybody from around the world is here. There's room enough for everybody. No one waits. It moves quickly. Everybody, you know, you can see whatever ride, you can see whatever show, you know, you can eat whatever you want. If you get, you know, it's like, just say please and thank you. You get a pass. You have a day. I mean, I'm sure it has its problems. Like I said, I'm not an influencer for.
Well, I would agree with you. I would say the big problem is it's mighty costly to go to Disney. So not everyone.
I know they're elitists. You need a scholarship to go to Disney.
Well, I would just say I think it's probably very costly to solve all of those problems, which is I would say a big reason why we are where we are, you know, and we have so much controversy with politics and the government and all of that.
And some of the things are very some of the facts. See, this is why, you know, my thesis, it had facts. There's some really facts that threaten. I'm empathetic. I can understand this.
Mm-hmm.
There were more white deaths than minority deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Pew reports and such. There are fewer white babies being born and more babies of every kind of combination. Okay.
Yeah.
These statistics, the browning and the full color of America, what's the pressure point is that it already exists. Okay, it's not like it's coming. And
Yeah.
so it already exists. My nephew's generation is here, and they're going to grow up. And this pressure point, you know, a big majority community is feeling like there's no seat on the tram. I'm losing my seat in the tram at Disney. And everybody's saying, no, everybody relax. It's Disney.
Right.
So everybody's got a seat.
Yeah.
You know, and you asked me about the kids, if they can become competitive and have the savvy to go in and say that they are the light in this darkness. So it's learning some business in addition to the art. It's learning why we design and understanding that they're the solution. But if you don't have the inspiration, if you don't have the empowerment, and you've come from some of these areas where you are not vogue, right. It takes a whole lot of coaching.
Yeah, you start from a dispossessed place. So you're in a place that it just breeds negativity. So I mean, I know I look a certain way, and I know I'm wearing a Burberry shirt. I have, when I was young, I lived in Jersey City for 8 years. You know, I was the only white face on the block. Well, that's an exaggeration, but I was very much in groups of friends where I was the minority. You know, and I had no money because I was trying to be. I was trying to be a musician as well, but I had that experience, and I understood. One of the things I grew up in a very kind of homogeneous, in Delaware. That's where I grew up, and one of my best friends from childhood is black. So he and I, we've been friends for life. We're always on the phone with each other, and we always felt like oddballs. He was like the one black kid in my school. So, and I always felt like I was this creative person. I was kind of a class clown. And so he and I kind of always stuck together. We've been friends for the past 40 years. But when I was living in Jersey City with no money and basically living amongst minorities where I was the minority, what I learned there is, it's really tough. If you're in a rough place, that's where you're born, in this rough place. And then there's all these limitations that happen. And then you hear about this kind of success from dreams and all that stuff. But that's not going to happen for me because, you know, I'm 30 years old. I didn't graduate high school. And now I'm on the streets. And it's way easier for me to sell drugs than to try and get my GED and, you know, work at McDonald's or something like that. I mean, that's kind of some kids' reality. And I guess, you know, the empathy there, it's very hard. It's almost like totally disconnected. I don't know. I don't know what I'm kind of saying here, but I'm just.
I think there needs to be some mentoring voices that can go into, you know, primary communities as high school, as this project, and say, no matter what you see, no matter what you feel, this industry needs you. And by the time you're prepared and ready, they'll be knocking down doors to find you. And then it's going to be survival of the fittest. Which one of you is the best designer in here? That's the one that Prada's going to come looking for and say, look, can you make sure we don't do this again?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we can't see
past Burberry, you're saying.
Yeah. We can't see past our own nose. Now, everybody has a place in this community now. And the more the majority and I've heard people say, like when I talk about, you know, come dressed in a suit, I've heard people say, well, you know, we're in studios, and if you don't come looking like an artist, they don't think, you know. I said, well, you know what? The studios aren't the ones that are dishing out the money. The studios are dishing out your salary.
Yeah.
Okay, you try this going to the C-suite to get the contract, to get the deal. I don't know how far you're going to get off. You're not going to get past the elevator.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in
at that point, maybe a suit won't help, but it's definitely not going to hurt you. And
No, it's not going to hurt you.
right.
And it helps level the ground.
The other thing is, yeah, I mean, a suit is a uniform. And
Yeah.
it's basically design. There's a design there to say, hey, I'm no better than anybody else, but I'm going to dress this up. You know, everybody at the table's wearing suits.
Yeah, but maybe that works with, you know, going into you know, trying to get a job in a studio, you know.
Right.
So the more you look authentic to yourself as a designer, that kind of works. But we're talking about being in a place where you have
Business leaders you're talking to.
yeah, and we're talking about making money. We're not
Right.
talking about making jobs. I mean,
Right.
keeping a job. We're talking about making money. Okay, and until you can own some of that equity, equality and equity are two different things, sir.
Yes, sir.
And so if we aspire for equity, we've already got equality. We've got equality. And I've been telling you, I had equality from the day I walked into New York with this anomaly, DNA. Yeah. Okay, I had equality.
Yeah.
But we're talking about equity, which is a whole nother story. Can I have a piece of the game?
Mm-hmm. And that's the competitive landscape. And that's where that's the meritocracy you're talking about.
Yeah, even in saying I'm the best one to do this, and
right.
Here's my cost for it. Yeah, and the check, you know, the check comes from the controller.
Right. Well, last question here. So, many designers look at design and, you know, just creative art making as problem solving. So, if you think about what's happened recently at Harvard with the Asian students and the lawsuit. And this, I think, speaks to your problem or what you're addressing here, because in that scenario, you know, Harvard is trying to push forward this agenda of inclusion, and then you have these Asian folks who are just disproportionately excelling. So this cultural group, and apparently Harvard found itself in a pickle because it started to push back against the Asian applicants, right?
Okay, so do you feel they were pushing back because they're more competitive and it's kind of getting out of hand, so they're putting reins on it? Is that what you feel?
What I understood, you know, I've read a couple articles about it, and what I've heard, some reaction was that it was, and this might be some projection as well, but it was a bit of a surprise. Like, okay, we're trying to create an equal playing field, and oh man, this demographic over here. Like I think last year they admitted something like 24% of the admissions were Asian students, and they tried to push back on that. I guess to meet some inclusion quota. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if you've heard anything.
Okay, so yeah, I understand it. Let me tell you. Let me put some facts on the table.
Okay.
You might not.
Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not sure.
No. Let me put some what I call my critical sociological.
Okay, let's hear it.
My opinion. My op-ed. Okay. My op-ed. It comes in two current sightings I have. You can Google these. These places of elite community, all of them, even the design industry and in our training, whether it be Ivy League, Harvard, any of it, they'll make you smart. But they ain't gonna help you do anything with it. So you can go get smart, but you'll be smarter if you'll figure out what to do with smart.
Mm-hmm.
Washington Post, 9/26/2016, Mary Beth Gassman addresses in a headline in an article, an Ivy League professor on why colleges don't hire more faculty of color. She decides she's going to tell the Washington Post and everybody who's listening at a conference the truth. Okay, this is not me. This is Mary Beth Gassman. She's professor of higher education in the Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania, where she directs the Penn Center for Minority Serving Institutions and holds secondary opportunities appointments in history, Africana studies, the School of Social Policy and Practice. And she answers the question, why, as an Ivy League professor, on why colleges don't hire more faculty of color. Her answer, we don't want them. Get your education, but some of this you got to accept the mores of the community. Go get smart and then be smarter. And you got to shake, we don't want them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reality unless there's a pushback, unless there's advocacy, unless there is theology to make wrong right. Look at this.
So
just stay with me. Stay with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, here's another one. I'm going to pull it together for you. Stephanie Lampkin. She's got a clip I found on LinkedIn. Makers Women's Conference. And she's got a little interview. And she says, when I applied for an analytical lead role at Google, she says, I was labeled, I wasn't technical enough. And then she says, how could I not be technical? I'm a stack developer from APCS, Stanford, MIT. Okay, and so you don't want me? I'm now CEO and founder of Blender, an app that uses augmented intelligence and people analytics to hire a diverse workforce. They're gonna let you get smart.
Mm-hmm.
So be smarter and do something with it on your own, or figure your way out of this madness and darkness. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, or you live the life of an advocate who presses for change and is willing to go to court, who's willing. So I'm not saying just lay down and take it. What I'm saying is that this is the world we're in. And the world I was in, you couldn't even get into these places to get the education and the exposure. So now that you got it, it's up to you. The gift of God that was given to you, it's your gift back to God, what you're going to do with it. So if you can get into Harvard, if you can get into Yale, if you can get into MIT, if you can get into Stanford, go get smart and then figure out what you're going to do and leave your legacy. Living your life is your story. Living your life for others is your legacy. You figure it out. And there's a strength and an empowerment and it takes a lot to see this kind of depth and a lot of callous to move forth and do something with what has been given. And there's always going to be a pushback. There's always going to be a stumbling block. But get on top of the blocks and walk over and transcend, emerge. Okay? And what I'm telling you is I'm still here talking because I'm relevant.
Yeah. I think
to the same discussion I had when I was a young woman. And I don't know that I don't look in this age, I'm growing through the same thing in race relations that I did when I was a kid. I don't know that. And now the difference between what I see now and what I saw back when Martin Luther King, the only difference is, like Gil Scott-Heron said, the revolution will not be televised. No, he was right. It's going to be on Twitter.
For sure.
For real? There's nothing different.
I think the revolution, I might say the revolution is going to take another 100 years. I think it's happening like grass growing. I don't think it's...
Yeah, but the difference is we can see it. I don't know that these things, the difference is we can see it now. And the iPhone makes sure that everybody's a reporter. We're seeing everything that was in the dark, we now see in the light. Yeah. But I don't know that a lot of this is any different than it was when I was a kid. So I guess what I'm sharing with you is, you got to do what you got to do, and you have to do what you have to do, and you must do to transcend. Yeah. And the design community, like it or not, the young design community has to get light and inspiration and vision to understand that they are the solution for the hour.
Right.
I was the solution and my peers, we got lost. I was having a conversation recently because this topic is resurging me, okay? And I can, I still have verve. I can get up and go. Okay, yeah. People ask me, what do I see? What do I think? And I just really, the kids, the youth today, the millennium designers, they just have to see the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And
they have to see it. They have to know it. They have to know where it is.
And that it's difficult, I think, to see it sometimes. It's difficult to find it. But to your earlier point, if you spend your life working towards being prepared, then when the opportunity arises, you will be able to step right in, right? That's what I'm hearing from you, right?
Yeah, and that's how Cheryl Miller had a collection. I collected. Yeah. People say, how in the world did you get to Stanford? I said, I put everything in a box.
Right.
And they came and got 50 boxes of it. Who does that? Who does that?
I mean, Cheryl Miller does. That's who. I gotta see this box at some point. So I think this has been a really great discussion, Cheryl. I mean, we took quite an amount of time, but I think it's well worth it. And from all this, I want to summarize just some really great insights I've heard from you. So one is that last one about really just dress up, show up. A guy I knew in Jersey City, he used to say 95% of life is just showing up. Like, just show up, get your clothes on, dress up, take care of yourself, present yourself, be respectful, right?
And how about this one? This was crazy. I was really crazy. I never carried a portfolio in business.
So how'd you show your work?
I didn't. I got the thinnest, I swear, my witness, I got the thinnest black briefcase. In fact, I'll bring it to the conference.
Okay.
It was about this thing. It was like this. I'm in New York, okay? Yeah. Like this. And what could I hold in that? Looking slick, like a designer. A black briefcase, business briefcase that was this thick. Mm-hmm. I got a pen, a pad. There were no iPhones back then. A pen, a line pad, and 1 or 2 publications and a business card. Never carried a portfolio. Very, very rarely. And so when I went to a meeting, I left you my card, mm-hmm. and I left you the two publications. So I would buy 250. That was a part of the collection. I bought everything I produced. I paid overs with my printer. I bought 250 to 1,000 copies of everything I ever produced. So they came and took, I was able to clean out my storage. Okay, so they took samples of everything, and the boxes went out. The rest of it went out. I saved enough for 2 other collections I'm trying to place. Maybe a traveling show, and when I have another opportunity, I want to put in a museum, pieces left over. But I just looked and said, I'm the best in town. Call me. I'll send, if you want a proposal, I'll send it to you. And we delivered. So I know that was kind of cocky, but in New York City, it was my swag and it worked.
Well, and I think to your point, if you are that prepared, then you can walk that walk, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the assignment. And what was hard, my love, I had no mentors. Right. Not a one. I had one business friend who was older and in essence opened up his Rolodex and introduced me to people in New York where I could sell. Yeah. But a design mentor? No. I was like Serena. I'm everybody's design mentor. I had no one. I had no one and no one. I'm like, oh my God, how did I know? But the gift of God, I knew what to do, and I knew to save everything, and it's like, oh my God. Oh, and this, you forgot to ask me about the women.
Yeah.
Okay. do I have time to tell you about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the bottom line is, where did I disappear to? I ran out of time for making family, and I thought I was going to be off 18 months with my first kid, and it ended up 18 years until Stanford. Well, a few people. Print came back for another article. Stanford came back. Everybody who called me would find me. I thought I was going to just stay off with kids for 18 months, and it ended up 18 years. And I'm like, okay. And then I got lost. My peers and we had some very active, I wasn't alone with this movement. We have some designers of color of greatness. We all got lost, I think, in the lack of digital literacy and moving forward. Our stories, when I put Google at Discovery 2002 and the Kendall at 1997, we did all of this traction 1991, and our stories aren't necessarily on Wikipedia. We haven't been, it's current history, but we haven't been digitized forward. Okay. And so I wasn't the only one, but a lot of us haven't been documented forward into being searchable. And so I just thank God that this scholarship of mine just kept pulling me forward. And, at least I'm Googleable now, and a few of my friends, but we missed, there's a big gap in our story because of technology. Our stories need to hit Wikipedia and get on websites. And, I'm not the only link. There was a close network of friends. And we were on New York together. And what was nice is each one of us did something different. Someone was in sales promotion. Someone was in magazine. I was really the only one that was just solely focused on annual reports and corporate communication, C-suite stuff. I didn't want to do anything else but make pretty books for corporations. And so thus I had this collection of, even old Macintoshes and chemistries and programs and things they took.
Wow.
Yeah, I was the whole thing was a museum all by itself. It was a Cooper Hewitt wing all by itself. But and I was walking around with the greats. I mean, Saul Bass, Lou Dorsman, Paul Rand. All the ones that are revered.
Yeah. And
there was Cheryl Miller.
Wow.
I know. And I dared to say, well, I'm with you too. So I did Art Director Club and AIGA, and I won awards, and, I taught at FIT. I did all of it that you aspire to do, inclusive of retiring to Connecticut as a woman. And I said, okay, well, I'll raise my kids, and this scholarship keeps coming back. And now the kids are in college, I'm back.
It's just amazing. You raised your kids too for 18.
Yeah. I took.
Story.
Yeah. By 2002, I cut the phones off. I said, I can't do this. My kid was a toddler. He was 2 years old, and I hung up the T-square. Mm. But it was this legacy work. The advocacy kept calling, and why I believe I still have a voice. Is because it hasn't let me go. And so it's an honor to be able to be with you, to have you, talk to me. And I'm coming out to, Chicago to meet everybody. And I have to tell, I know what I wanted to say. It's like the Green Book story with the Emmys, the Oscars. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in the diverse community of color, there's a whole lot of conversation about it, and I want to give you a quote. And in the African American community, there's a lot of the family that the story is about. They didn't even come and ask us. Dr. Shirley's family, they've got all of this, but this is the challenge. Let me give you this quote. I got this quote from Michelle Washington, she's one of our designers of color historian, Michelle Washington. She wrote my article that's appearing on Design Profiles, AIGA. And she used a quote, "Until the lions have their historians, the tales of the hunt will continue to glorify the hunters." The Green Book is about the Italian guy who was the driver. It's not about Dr. Shirley. Dr. Shirley's family, that's why the acting and the supporting actor, and that's why the awards got the way they are. Until Dr. Shirley's family tells the story, the driver's family told the story.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? So don't get mad. Don't get mad that the hunters told the story.
Right.
The African proverb, thank you, Michelle. Until the lions have their historians, the tales of the hunt will continue to glorify the hunters. Yeah. So Spike Lee.
Yeah.
Tell Dr. Shirley's story. Okay? And yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is we have to stand on the platform and we got to do this. Live it out, walk it out. We can do this. The community and the colors now, so many different colors and combinations thereof. And with globalization, the stories, oh my God.
I think it's like history is leaving us, right? So it's almost like we have to remember the history and retell the history, right?
Revisionist historians.
And then we have to say, what does the history mean to us today? What is that? And then how do we make our world a better world? That was really deep, but
but and so that's what happened to Cheryl Miller. I said all this heavy lifting, and I did all of this by the time I was running out of time. I did all of this by the time I was 37 years old. Okay, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. I want to go do my family. That's my design project. And so, like I said, I went out. I thought I was going to be out of my work, family leave, 18 months. It's 18 years, and Stanford finding my boxes and finding me, and the scholarship, not the article, the scholarship kept coming back to me. Mrs. Miller, can you give us a comment? Ms. Miller, what do you see? Mrs. Miller, can you come talk one more time? Mrs. Miller, Mm-hmm. And so finally, for me, it's timing that all of this has come back for me. My kids are now in college, and I'm reframing, and I'm excited. You see what I'm doing in the back. I said I wanted to tell everybody what I'm doing. I'm doing another impossible dream.
Okay.
I'm doing another impossible dream. Please wish me well in it. I believe that the same mark, because I'm lifetime with this. I have another saying, I'm not new to this, I'm true to this.
Okay.
I am all this time, I failed to mention that when my father died, all the way back at RISD, I left, my godmother was a painter. And as I mentioned, I was highly influenced by the color field cadre colony of Frank Stella and Gene Davis and Kenneth Nolan. And there were 6 major color field painters in Washington, D.C. when I was a teen. And 2 of them were African-American, Sam Gilliam, and they let a woman in, Alma Thomas. While this was going on in New York, they were in a colony in Washington. And I grew up with these images all over Washington, the back of buses, along the mall, the museums, invitations, the Washington Post. Mm-hmm. Everything was a contemporary color field expression, Hirshhorn Gallery, everything was color field when I was growing up.
I mean, this is this image sitting behind you, this.
Oh, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm hoping, I'm hearing, pray for me. I am, all the time that I went to RISD to paint, and my father passed away. And I said, I better switch. I didn't know I was going to marry my high school sweetheart. I said, let me switch discipline. I'm going to stay with art. I better learn how to get a job. So I changed from painting to applied arts, to graphics. And thus I completed the entire graphic journey. And when my kid got to 10th grade and I knew that I was going to empty nest, I started painting. And long story short, we're hitting I always painted. So I have a collection of color field painting that I did while I was developing my studio and this design career. I have an incredible mid-century collection that we are, my husband and I are looking to launch my art market career. It starts with this work that I did while I was building my design career. I never stopped painting. I'm a painter. And the only reason I switched gears is my dad died. I said I get a job. So I'm waiting now. I'm hoping. I applied to be a part of the ad art show that'll be a brand new, you talk about a disruptor. I'll be, if I'm let into the show, it's a juried show. I'm hoping to hear this week. Fine artists who are birthed from, the criteria is you had to be in commercial art, advertising, design in order to enter into the show. And this particular gallery, MD Mauve Art, I think it is, but I'll give you some links for that. And I'm hoping that I've been judged in the show. I'll be launching my paintings during Fuse Week. And so I'm preparing for the show, and I have a show that I'm entering in my community that's being judged and curated from some of the curators down at Guggenheim. And so I've got this platform of painting during this season. So I have a dispensation of work from the mid-'70s, the '90s, and most currently, I'm continuing my color field studies, and I'm finishing up this one I'm putting in the show, if you can kind of see.
Yeah.
This one I'm calling East
Beautiful.
Village. Yeah, this one I'm calling East Village. I'm inspired by Jean-Michel Basquiat. But I'm looking to put this in the show in out here in Connecticut. And we're going to tackle the art market. And where we're launching from is the collection of paintings that were done while it's the story behind the collection, that even though my father passed away, and I had these great DNA of painters and my parents' friends were painters and photographers and things, I left RISD to paint. And then unfortunate, like I said, my dad was dead 10 months after I got to RISD.
Wow.
I know. And I went into career, I needed a career, and painting seemed a little lofty. And so I switched to design. And so I've just picked up what I started, or continuing on. I'm a painter, and I claim, though I'm disciplined in the academy, I mean, I can draw and paint, but I am an abstract expressionist, and my DNA is color field, and I have a rich history in that. Like I told you, my first award, I knocked off a Picasso, and the next thing I know, it was on the front page of the Washington Post section, one of the sections, as a Girl Scout. So you can follow me on Instagram with my, art market and provenance, and all my paintings that I've given away, we've given out, over the years. Oh, people come by the house. I didn't know you paint. Can I have a painting? I'm like, yeah. So we're backtracking the catalog and sending out letters of authenticity. I'm making new works, and going to tackle the art market. And I'm hoping I'm in this show. If you're on Instagram, I'm hoping this week I'll be able to announce that I was juried into the show, which is going to be linked. New York City is going to be running the shows. The gallery is presenting on the kiosk through Fuse Weeks, and so I'm hoping to, I'm hoping to be in the show and to sell and to continue on and to lecture and to be a part of inspiring and raising you guys to finish, what I was blessed enough to kind of open the door. I won't take credit for starting anything other than, listen, guys, there was a party over here and a problem over here, and I just told you, I told you about it. I'm still telling you about it, and the solution is in our hands now. And I'm telling you, I'm too old to go to Prada and take a senior executive job. but you can,
Yeah.
you know. Maybe a board seat or something. I can come by and help somebody. But listen, I need the guys to see the future and see the vision and be the light in the vision.
Cheryl, I think you have a wealth of inspiration, and I look forward to seeing your success, and I know you're going to be inspiring to some folks out there. So I'm hoping I'm helping you along the journey.
Oh,
And,
yes, indeed. I thank you so much.
yeah, thanks so much for taking this time to talk. It's been a real journey with you. So I appreciate.
Okay, listen, I'm tempted to ask you, okay? Yeah. Because we're doing this Zoom thing and I can see you.
Yes.
And you can see me.
Yeah.
And we've talked now for however long this recording is.
Like an hour.
Yeah.
I'm about to lose my charge. Oh my gosh,
okay,
1%. Okay. What would
you
want to ask me?
you look, your persona seems different than when we started. Has there been something that I have said that has reached you? You really look like reflective or thoughtful, or it's kind of like eating a buffet and it's like, oh yeah, I just really like the strawberry shortcake. Everything was good, but boy, I really enjoyed that shortcake. But it looks like something reached you, touched you, something I've said made a difference for you today. And so I asked the question. I can see you look entirely different than when we first started.
Well, I mean, I'm always a little bit more tense at the beginning, then I feel like I get to know the person. So I think that kind of happens organically. But if I could say a takeaway here, I think a lot of these issues, these challenges you address, they're on my mind. I mean, I look the way I look. This is what the Mad Men look like back in the 1950s in the ad industry. That's what I look like, and you see what's going on today in our world politically, and in my heart, I want the best for people. I think that's what I want, and I think it's really important to have these discussions. To some of these questions we're talking about diversity, and I think it's important to have these kinds of discussions. So to answer your question there, I think that made me happy to speak with you.
Do something for Cheryl Miller.
Okay.
You be the light and find a way to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely.
And make no problems. and then our living will have not been in vain. To find something that you can do. Be the light in this. Boy, the darkness is dim, Lord of mercy. But be the light and be a part of the solution. And if you can do that, then the conference and everything we do, we have a leave behind a tape. Even a small thing, what can I do different to help?
Well, I'm at 0%, so we're about to get cut off. But I will do that, Cheryl. Thank you so much.